Well, here we are again, guys. Another Sunday, another video. But believe it or not, today is one of my absolute favorite Sundays of the year. Today is the Sunday after Easter, which is also known as Holy Humor Sunday. Now, oddly enough, although you won't find this on any of the liturgical church calendars, this is not something that I just completely made up. It's actually an ancient church tradition, Holy Humor Sunday is, that's been revamped in recent years. And now here at Bethel, we've been celebrating now this is our third year to celebrate Holy Humor Sunday, and I just love it. It's so silly and so fun. And for the 12 people who have been in attendance to those services the past couple of years, this first part might be a bit of a refresher for you guys. But for everyone else who stayed at home and slept in, and I know who you are, or you know who you are as well, I thought you might like to know the history behind Holy Humor Sunday. It's no secret that Easter Sunday is the biggest and most well-attended church service of the year, right? All over the world, people who don't regularly go to church attend worship service on Easter Sunday. It's a very, very big day in the life of the church, and rightfully so. There's so much to celebrate. But what you may not know is that traditionally, the lowest attended Sunday of the year is the Sunday after Easter, this Sunday. Many people even call it Low Sunday. And just because I know you're wondering, the second lowest attended Sunday of the year is the Sunday after Christmas. But the Sunday after Easter hasn't always been the lowest attended Sunday. For centuries, the week after Easter, starting on Monday and ending on the following Sunday, was observed by faithful churchgoers as the days of joy and laughter. These days were celebrated with parties and picnics, all in an effort to continue the celebration of the resurrection. Churchgoers and pastors alike, they would play practical jokes on one another. They would tell jokes and sing and dance with one another. It was a time of great joy and laughter. Just an all-around great time had by everyone. A huge celebration. And it was all rooted in some of the earliest writings of the theologians in the church. People like Augustine and Gregory of Nyssa, who I know you guys have read so much of their work, but these guys wrote and contended that with the resurrection, God pulled off the greatest practical joke of all time. They actually referred to the resurrection as the Easter laugh, not because the event in and of itself was funny, but because God had pulled off the biggest joke ever on death. Death thought it had won, but with the resurrection, God got the last laugh, and it was celebrated in this way for centuries. And up until recently, it's kind of been forgotten about and really just a thing of the past, and up until the past few years. It's kind of been a thing forgotten about, and for the past few years, we've been celebrating this fun day at Bethel. So my earnest desire for us this morning is that we can just laugh together. And maybe just for a moment, we can set aside everything that's been happening. We can forget about all the stuff that's going on in the world, and we can just be joyful together as we laugh with one another. If for no other reason than because Proverbs 17 tells us that laughter is good medicine. So this morning, sit back and enjoy some terrible jokes that I hope bring a smile to your face and maybe even a verbal chuckle to you wherever you are. So with my disclaimer out of the way, here goes nothing. You know, with this whole quarantine thing, we've all been stuck in our homes with our families for what seems like forever, haven't we? And some of us have had it worse than others, like poor little Johnny. He was stuck in his home with his brand new baby brother. And as most babies do, Johnny's little brother cried a lot, and I'm talking about a lot. He screamed morning, noon, and night. And one day, Johnny said, "Mom, where did little brother come from?" And, the mother just looked at her precious baby, who happened to be screaming his head off at the time, and said, "Well, little Johnny, he came straight from heaven." Little Johnny said, "Well, I can sure see why they threw him out." But to be fair, being stuck at home has probably been tough on a bunch of kids, right? Like little Billy. He'd been misbehaving all morning, and his mom had sent him to his room to think about what he'd been doing. And after being in there for a little while, he came out and told his mother that he was sorry and that he prayed while he was in there. And feeling a bit proud of her son's actions, Billy's mom said, "That's great, buddy. I'm so proud of you. Praying and asking God to help you not misbehave anymore is such a good thing to do because we know that God always helps us when we ask," right? Confused a little bit, Billy looked at his mom and said, "But, Mommy, that's not what I prayed for. I prayed that God would help you put up with me." This is really weird to do by myself, by the way. But kids pray for the darndest things, don't they? Like the little girl who prayed, "Dear God, I bet it's hard for you to love everyone on the earth. I just have 2 brothers, and it's hard enough for me to love them." Or the little boy who tried to give God some advice in his prayer when he said, "Dear God, I bet Cain wouldn't have killed Abel if they would have just had their own rooms, because Mom says that works for me and my brother." You know, although kids being stuck under the same roof with their brothers and sisters for so long has probably been pretty tough on them, I'd be willing to bet that the hardest thing they've had to deal with has probably been the deep cleaning that their parents have made them do of the house. There was one little boy who one Sunday overheard his preacher say that we all come from dust, and when we when we die, we return to dust. And this stuck with him, and he mulled it over on the way home, and he asked his mom, he said, "Mom, is it true that we come from dust, and when we die, we turn back into dust?" And his mom, kind of impressed that he'd paid attention at all that morning in the sermon, she said, "Yeah, buddy, we learned all about that today at church." And he looked at her as serious as he could, and he said, well, then you'd better go check under my bed when we get home, because there's either somebody coming or going one. But not everyone has been forced to clean their homes so thoroughly throughout this whole quarantine experience. I know. Some people have taken a different approach. Many folks are reading some of those books that they've left sitting on a shelf for years that they've just never had time to get around to. Like little Stevie. He was digging through a bookshelf one day in his house when he ran across his old family Bible. And he hadn't seen this particular Bible before, and he was so excited to just be flipping through it and see what had been underlined by his grandmother and his great-grandparents and all this, the history that was in this Bible. And as he was flipping through, a leaf fell out. He was so excited. He grabbed that leaf and he ran straight to his mom and dad. And he said, "Mom, Dad, I found a pair of Adam's underwear." Oh. No doubt, Adam and Eve was a story that he learned in Sunday school, right? You know, it's funny what kids pick up in Sunday school, isn't it? Like little Johnny, for example. He'd been learning all about how God created everything and how Adam was made from the dust of the earth and Eve was made from one of Adam's ribs. And one day little Johnny's mom noticed he was lying on the floor and he wasn't feeling very well. She said, "Johnny, what's wrong?" Fighting back tears, Johnny said, "Oh no, Mommy, but I don't feel good at all." Johnny's mom said, "Well, I wonder what it could be, honey." And Johnny said, "Oh, Mom, my side hurts so bad. I think God's making me a wife." It's super weird telling jokes to yourself at a computer screen. I hope this is working for you guys. I know that these jokes have been ridiculous, but I hope that my silliness has at least brought a smile to your face this morning, because as I've already mentioned, Proverbs tells us that laughter is good medicine. As the psalmist tells us in Psalm 126, or the 126th Psalm, that our mouths are filled with laughter and our tongues are filled with joy because God has done great things for us. Despite everything that is and has been going on in the world, we still have a ton of reasons to laugh and be joyful as followers of Jesus, not the least of which is the empty tomb that we celebrated last week. Or as some of the earliest theologians saw it, the greatest practical joke of all time. So, as followers of Jesus, may we be able to laugh. May we be filled with joy because of everything that God has done for us today and every day. I've got one more joke for you this morning, and I'll close. It's an oldie, but it's a goodie. It's one of my favorites. There was this preacher who was out one Saturday morning, and he was going to some yard sales, and he'd been needing a push mower, and he happened to find one for sale at this guy's yard sale, and he thought, well, if I can get that for the right price, I'd love to have that push mower. And so he asked the guy, and he was talking about it. He said, does that push mower, does it work? Does it start good and run well? He said, because I'm really kind of needing one. And the guy said, oh, yeah. I said, this push mower, every day, every single time I've ever used it, 3 cranks starts right up. It's never missed a lick. Every single time, 3 cranks, it'll start right up. Preacher said, well, would you take $25 for it? And the guy said, yeah, I'll take $25 for it. The preacher said, well, that's good. He said, I'm going to go home and fix me some lunch, and I'm going to use it this afternoon. And the guy said, I'll tell you what, if it doesn't work, you bring it right back here. I'm telling you, that mower works like a charm every third pull, every single time. So the preacher loaded it up in his truck, and he went home and fixed himself a sandwich and ate some lunch and thought, I'm going to give that mower a try. And he walked outside, and he pulled on it 3 times and just knew it was going to start, and nothing. And he said, well, that's weird. And he pulled on it 3 more times and nothing. And he 3 more times and nothing. He pulled on that the pull rope on that mower for 30 minutes. Never hit a lick. And by this point, he was mad. He loaded that mower right back up in his truck, and he took it back to that guy's house, and he found him. He was still outside in his yard. He walked up to him, and he pointed his finger in his face, and he said, you lied to me. He said, this mower hasn't started yet. I pulled on it for 30 minutes, and it never hit a lick. You told me it started on the 3rd pull every single time. The guy said, oh, man. He said, I'm so sorry, preacher. He said, I forgot to tell you the trick. He said, first, you got to give that mower a good cussing and then pull on it 3 times to start right up. And he said, watch, I'll show you. He walked over to the mower, and he pointed his finger at that mower, and he laid into it and started stringing cuss words together that would make a sailor blush. He cussed that mower up one side and down the other. And when he finished, pulled on it 3 times, the mower started right up. He said, see, preacher, I told you, works like a charm. The preacher, still kind of in disbelief at what he had just seen, he said, well, I can't do that. He said, I'm a preacher. I haven't cussed in 30 years. And the guy said, you just keep pulling on that rope and it'll all come back to you. Oh, I hope that this has brought some joy to you this morning. I love you guys. I miss you guys. And I pray that somehow, some way today, you're able to laugh and enjoy everything that God has done for us.